like this. Get your ass in the front row and study and do all that, Rex said. I know the whole league knows. If I know the whole league knows, quit being an embarrassment that way. You've got the talent to be the quarterback. You should be embarrassed that you're not the quarterback now. I mean, I know that there's a certain element of hot takery that goes on. I know that there's a certain effort by a guy who hasn't coached since 2016 to remain relevant at a time when most people don't even remember who he was or care. And I'm sorry, but we're talking about Rex Ryan this week when we otherwise wouldn't be talking about Rex.
Rex Ryan went on national television and called Shedeur Sanders an embarrassment. He told the Cleveland Browns rookie quarterback to get your ass in the front row and study and stop running his mouth. The former NFL coach, now ESPN analyst, launched a brutal attack that was supposed to humiliate a fifth-round pick who wasn't even starting for his team. But Shedeur Sanders didn't break. He didn't apologize. He didn't back down. Instead, he fired back in the most creative and devastating way possible by completely miming his press conference responses without saying a single word, trolling Rex Ryan so brilliantly that it went viral across every social media platform. And then came the ultimate validation. Randy Moss, one of the greatest receivers in NFL history, stepped in and publicly defended Sanders on live television, essentially silencing critics who thought the rookie was out of line. This isn't just about one heated exchange. This is about a young quarterback refusing to be bullied by old-school football figures who think rookies should be seen and not heard. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because this story exposes the generational divide in the NFL and proves that Shedeur Sanders isn't backing down from anyone. Let's start with what actually triggered this entire controversy. Because Rex Ryan's attack on Shedeur Sanders wasn't just harsh criticism, it was a calculated, personal assault designed to humiliate a rookie quarterback on national television. The backstory begins with Sanders doing what professional athletes do. He spoke confidently about his abilities in media interviews. Sanders had been talking about his preparation, his film study, his belief that he belonged in the NFL despite falling to the fifth round. He wasn't being arrogant or disrespectful. He was simply refusing to play the role of the humble rookie who apologizes for existing. But that confidence rubbed certain old-school football figures the wrong way, and Rex Ryan became the most vocal critic. Ryan went on ESPN's Get Up and absolutely unloaded on Sanders. He called the rookie an embarrassment and told him to get your ass in the front row and study. Ryan's message was clear. Rookies, especially fifth-round picks, have no business speaking with confidence. They should shut up, sit down, and earn the right to have an opinion by proving themselves on the field first. It was the classic old guard mentality that young players should be invisible until veterans give them permission to have a voice. The criticism wasn't just harsh, it was personal and demeaning. Ryan essentially told Sanders that his words meant nothing, that his confidence was unwarranted, and that he needed to understand his place in the NFL hierarchy. It was the kind of public takedown designed to embarrass a young player into silence, to teach him a lesson about respecting his elders and not getting too comfortable speaking his mind. But here's where Rex Ryan made his critical mistake. He underestimated who Shedeur Sanders is. This isn't some anonymous fifth-round pick with no platform or personality. This is Deion Sanders' son, a player who grew up around NFL legends, who's been in the spotlight his entire life, who understands media dynamics better than most veteran players. Sanders wasn't going to be intimidated by a former coach turned analyst trying to make headlines. By attacking him, Sanders' response was absolutely legendary. Instead of getting into a war of words, instead of defending himself with a lengthy statement, instead of giving Ryan the satisfaction of a direct confrontation, Sanders did something that was pure genius. He trolled Ryan in the most creative way possible. During a press conference, Sanders was asked multiple questions by reporters, and for every single question, Sanders responded by miming his answers using hand gestures, facial expressions, and body language to communicate without actually speaking a word. He pointed to his chest, He made throwing motions. He smiled. He shrugged. But he never said a single word out loud. The performance was brilliant theater. Sanders was essentially saying, "You told me to shut up and stop running my mouth. Fine. I'll communicate without saying anything. And I'll do it in a way that makes your criticism look ridiculous." It was disrespectful in the most respectful way possible. Creative defiance that couldn't be criticized as insubordination because technically, Sanders was complying with the demand to stop talking. The video went absolutely viral. Social media exploded with support for Sanders. Fans were posting the clips everywhere, praising his creativity and his refusal to be bullied into silence. Even people who aren't Browns fans or Sanders supporters had to admit that the mime press conference was one of the most entertaining and clever responses to criticism they had ever seen from an NFL player. The miming wasn't just funny, it was strategic. Sanders was showing that he has personality, that he's media savvy, that he understands how to control narratives and turn criticism into content. That works in his favor. He took Rex Ryan's attack, which was supposed to humiliate him, and flipped it into a moment that made him more popular, and made Ryan look like an out-of-touch bully picking on a rookie. But the most significant aspect of Sanders' response was what it represented philosophically. This was a young player refusing to accept the old guard mentality that rookies should be invisible and silent. Sanders was essentially saying, "I have value. I have a voice. And I'm not going to let former coaches who haven't been relevant in years tell me how to conduct myself." It was a generational statement, a rejection of the toxic culture that demands young players suppress their personalities until veterans decide they've earned the right to exist. The reaction from current NFL players was overwhelmingly supportive. Multiple active players posted about Sanders' mime press conference, praising his creativity and his refusal to back down. They understood what Sanders was doing. He was standing up for every young player who's been told to shut up and know their place by older figures who think respect only flows in one direction. And then came the moment that changed everything. Randy Moss stepped in to defend Shedeur Sanders on live television, and what he said absolutely silenced the critics who thought Sanders was out of line. Randy Moss is NFL royalty, a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest receivers to ever play the game, a player who revolutionized the position and struck fear into defensive coordinators for 2 decades. When Randy Moss speaks about football, people listen. And when he chose to publicly defend Shedeur Sanders against Rex Ryan's criticism on live television, it completely shifted the narrative. Moss appeared on ESPN and addressed the Sanders-Ryan controversy directly. And what he said was a masterclass in defending young players, while exposing the hypocrisy of old guard critics who demand respect from rookies while showing them none in return. Moss pointed out that there's nothing wrong with a young player having confidence. He explained that the greatest players in NFL history, himself included, all believed in themselves long before they proved anything to critics. Moss specifically said that if rookies don't believe they belong in the NFL, they'll never survive the brutal competition and constant criticism that comes with professional football. Confidence isn't arrogance when it's backed by preparation and work ethic, and Sanders has demonstrated both. But Moss went even further. He called out the double standard that exists in how the NFL treats young players compared to veterans. When established stars like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen speak confidently about their abilities, it's celebrated as competitive fire and leadership. But when a fifth-round rookie like Shedeur Sanders expresses similar confidence, suddenly he's being disrespectful and needs to learn his place. Moss said that hypocrisy is exactly what's wrong with NFL culture, and he wasn't going to stand by and watch a talented young player get torn down for having the same confidence that every great quarterback needs. The impact of Moss defending Sanders cannot be overstated. This wasn't just another player supporting a rookie. This was an all-time legend, someone with unquestionable credibility and respect throughout the football world, publicly validating Sanders' approach and essentially telling critics like Rex Ryan, that they're wrong. When Randy Moss takes your side in a controversy, you've won the argument. Period. Moss also addressed the mime press conference specifically, and instead of criticizing Sanders for being disrespectful, Moss praised him for his creativity and media savvy. He pointed out that modern NFL players need to be more than just athletes. They need to understand branding, social media, and how to control their own narratives. Sanders demonstrated all of those skills with his trolling response to Ryan, and Moss recognized that as evidence of intelligence and adaptability, not immaturity. The generational divide that this controversy exposed is fascinating and reveals fundamental disagreements about what NFL culture should look like. On one side, you have figures like Rex Ryan who believe in strict hierarchies, who think rookies should be silent until they've proven themselves through years of production, who view confidence from young players as disrespect toward veterans and coaches. This is the old guard mentality that dominated football for decades. On the other side, you have players like Shedeur Sanders and supporters like Randy Moss who believe that talent and preparation are in respect regardless of draft position or years of service, who think personality and authenticity should be celebrated rather than suppressed, who reject the idea that young players need to wait for permission from elders before expressing themselves. This is the new generation that's reshaping NFL culture. Rex Ryan represents a coaching philosophy that's becoming increasingly outdated. His approach worked in a different era when players had limited platforms and coaches controlled information flow. But in the age of social media, no deals, and player empowerment, that autocratic style doesn't work anymore. Young players like Sanders have their own brands, their own platforms, and their own ability to communicate directly with fans without needing approval from coaches or traditional media. Figures Ryan's attack on Sanders backfired spectacularly because he fundamentally misunderstood how power dynamics have shifted in the NFL. 20 years ago, a former coach criticizing a rookie on national television would have ended the conversation. The rookie would have apologized, promised to do better, and disappear from public view until he'd earned the right to speak again. But Sanders didn't follow that script. He trolled Ryan brilliantly, went viral, gained more support from fans and current players, and came out of the controversy looking stronger than when it started. The broader implications of this situation extend far beyond just Sanders and Ryan. This controversy has become a referendum on how the NFL should treat young players and whether the league's culture needs to evolve to reflect changing generational values. Younger fans overwhelmingly sided with Sanders, seeing him as authentic and entertaining. Older traditionalists tended to support Ryan, believing that rookies need to show more deference to established figures. But here's the crucial point that Randy Moss understood and articulated perfectly. Confidence isn't the enemy of respect. A young player believing in his abilities doesn't diminish the accomplishments of veterans who came before him. Shedeur Sanders saying he's prepared and confident doesn't disrespect the Hall of Famers who built the NFL. It just means Sanders understands that in order to succeed at the highest level, you have to believe you belong there before anyone else will believe it. The mime press conference will go down as one of the most iconic moments of Sanders' rookie season. Not because it was controversial, but because it perfectly captured his personality and his refusal to be controlled by outdated expectations. He found a way to comply with the criticism, technically not running his mouth, while simultaneously mocking the entire premise that he should be silent. It was brilliant, creative defiance that couldn't be punished but made the point loud and clear. And Randy Moss validating that approach on live television essentially closed the debate. When a Hall of Famer says a rookie is handling himself correctly, critics don't have much ground left to stand on. Moss gave Sanders the ultimate stamp of approval, and in doing so, he sent a message to every young player in the NFL. Don't let old guard figures bully you into suppressing your personality and confidence. Now it's your turn to weigh in on this explosive generational clash that's dividing the NFL world. First question: Was Rex Ryan right to criticize Shedeur Sanders for being too confident as a fifth-round rookie? Or was his attack unnecessarily harsh and disrespectful? Second question, was Sanders' mime press conference a brilliant, creative response, or was it immature and disrespectful to the media and critics? Third question, does Randy Moss defending Sanders settle the debate? Or do you still think rookies should stay quiet until they've proven themselves on the field? And finally, is this generational divide healthy for the NFL? Or does it create unnecessary conflict that distracts from football? Drop your answers in the comments right now. Smash the like button if you think Shedeur Sanders handled this situation perfectly and shouldn't apologize to anyone. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we're going to continue following Sanders' journey and every controversy that comes with a rookie who refuses to play by the old rules. This channel celebrates players who have personality, who stand up for themselves, and who refuse to be bullied into silence by outdated football culture. Shedeur Sanders just showed the entire NFL that young players don't have to accept disrespect from former coaches and analysts who think rookies should be invisible. Randy Moss validated that approach, and we're here for it. Stay locked in. Keep defending players who express themselves authentically. And let's watch as this new generation continues changing NFL culture for the better.